Help me welcome up Chris Baker. Hey, man. Hey, thanks for sharing with us, man.
That's my pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Love for you to just share real quick. What's your story of transformation? How did God show up in your life?
Okay. 4 years ago, my wife and I were having some struggles in our marriage and just, normal stuff, but we knew we needed to work on it just to continue growing. And before that point, we weren't Christians. We didn't go to church. We believed in God, but that was really the extent of our faith. I grew up in a very strict Irish Catholic household. My mom's from Northern Ireland. But when I was a teenager, I kind of started to rebel and do some of that and just distance myself from God and started making money and living for material things and having fun and just, not really focusing where I should be focusing on God. We decided mutually that, we were going to make this thing work. We love each other more than anything. We have 3 great kids. And we need to go see a counselor to help us sort this out. And a friend of ours suggested we go see Joan Guest at the Samaritan Interfaith Counseling Center in Naperville. We're like, interfaith, that's church. We don't go to church. We're like, all right, this is cool. She's been highly recommended, so we'll go check it out. And I'm heavily tattooed. Obviously, my legs are heavily tattooed. It was a January morning. I walked in there with shorts and a short sleeve shirt on. And Joan, I love her to death. I talk to her all the time still. And she looks just like the church lady from Saturday Night Live.
That's awesome.
So anyway, we have this first meeting, and we're just kind of laying the groundwork for all the things that what I needed to work on. Mostly it was me. Yeah. And I accept that. But we had set up an appointment for the following Saturday. And we get to the end of the counseling session, and she looks at us and says, one of the things I like to do for my clients before we wrap up is to pray for you. And my wife and I kind of chuckled a little bit and looked at each other and were like, go ahead, if it makes you feel better kind of thing. So we bowed our heads and we're like, this is how we're supposed to do this, right? I remember back to my Catholic days. And she started to pray for us. And my wife and I both felt the same thing at the same time, like that feeling when you take a blanket out of the dryer and it's nice and warm. Yeah. And we felt somebody was laying that blanket over our shoulders and just saying it's going to be all right.
Cool.
And then just broke down sobbing uncontrollably. And we looked at each other when she finished up and we composed ourselves and we're like, this is it. This is what's wrong. We lack God in our lives. We've been ignoring him. He's been here the whole time. But we've ignored him. So I asked Joan, I got excited, and I said, okay, I got to go to church tomorrow. Can you recommend a church? She's like, well, I live in the city, but next week I'll bring you a list of 4 or 5 that you can kind of look through and choose from. And I'm not very patient. That was one of the things we were working on in counseling. And so I went home and got on Google and found a church. My wife had to work that Sunday, but I was like, I'll go check it out. If I like it, we'll both go next week, or we'll check out another one. So again, I wore shorts and short sleeves because I was like, if they're going to accept me, they're going to accept me for who I am. I'm a tattoo artist, and this is part of me. And much to my surprise, they couldn't have been more welcoming. And it's like, hey, how are you? What's your name? Come have a cup of coffee with me. Sit with us. And the pastor gets up, and very charismatic guy, and he's talking about his trip. He just got back 2 days prior from Haiti. And they have an organization called New Life for Haiti, where they build schools in remote villages up in western Haiti. And I was like filled with excitement. And I got home, my wife got home from work, and I was barbecuing, and she comes out and, hey, how was church? I'm like, it was awesome, and I'm going to Haiti in July.
Yeah.
And my wife was like, whoa, let's talk about this. Start from the beginning, as I tell her. And I did go to Haiti that July, and I've gone every summer since. But it was the start. That one prayer that Joan said for us was just the starting point of what's become an amazing journey and one that's never going to change. It's just going to keep growing.
No, that's awesome. I mean, God's pursuit of you and then coming into a welcoming community where you can be yourself. And one of the things we talk a lot about around it here is that we're not meant to just become kind of Christ followers. We're supposed to be on mission with God, that God has this calling and even kind of unique missions for each of us. So tell us about God's calling on you and how Inc. 180 came about.
Well, I'm a youth pastor. I'm also a volunteer with Young Life in Oswego. So I work with high school boys, and I was trying to get them away from their Xboxes a little bit and teach them what it's like to serve God in the community. So we started doing graffiti removal and murals down East Joliet in the gang torn up neighborhoods. And we really liked it, and the kids really enjoyed it. But I always try to instill in them that this stuff is all great stuff to do, but pray for your calling. What does God have in store for you? What does he want you to do? So I did the same thing. Started praying on it hard and got an answer back fairly quickly, again, because I'm not patient. And it was very clear, although at first I was a little surprised. He said, the message back was, what do you love to do more than anything else, and will you do it for free? And I thought about it hard, and I was like, well, aside from spending time with my wife and kids, I love to tattoo more than anything else, but I get in conversations with people, productive conversations about, is tattooing right? What does the Bible say? And all that, and I welcome those conversations. I was like, yeah, it doesn't seem like that's God's work.
God, yeah.
And I kept praying, and it was almost like God was saying, hey, I told you what to do, go do it. So I called some friends that were probation officers up in Cook County, and I said, hey, I've got this calling. These guys were not Christians at the time, are now.
Awesome.
And they're like, so you're telling us God told you to go cover gang tattoos for free? It's like, yeah, that's it. And they're like, all right, we'll set it up. And what I thought was going to be a nice little ministry at first, 5 or 6 tattoos a month, we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary back in October, and we did 508 free cover-up tattoos.
Wow, yeah. Very cool. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And then it didn't even stop there, right? So you thought it would just be mostly focused on gang members and kind of covering up theirs because you'd met some before, but then it even went beyond that, too.
Yeah, one of the guys I go to church with is a really good friend of mine, Brian Smith. He's an agent with the Department of Homeland Security. And I speak about Inc. 180 at church every week. And he got really excited about it. And he's like, you need to come up and meet with our gang team and, tell them what you're doing and see if they want to do stuff together, work together. So I was like, absolutely. Well, I was driving up there that morning, and he called my cell phone. And he said, hey, would you mind if our trafficking team sat in on your presentation? They want to hear what you're doing. I was like, what does drug trafficking have to do with tattoos? And he's like, no, this is human trafficking, like sex trafficking. I was like, that doesn't happen here, does it? Please tell me it doesn't happen here. He's like, oh, it happens here too much, and we have a whole team dedicated to it, and they want to present that to you. So we did the gang presentation. They sat in on it. They loved what we were doing. We teamed up right away. And I said, now please, tell me more about this human trafficking. And that phrase, be careful what you ask for, because you're going to get it. I got hit pretty hard with the reality of human trafficking in our country and our city. They started putting out pictures in front of me on this boardroom table of young girls, 13, 14, 15-year-old girls from our neighborhoods. A lot of people think, because the media is just now kind of catching on to this and starting to educate us about it, but people, including me at the time, thought this was only something that happened overseas. These girls look like our daughters. I have a 14-year-old daughter, and that, I think, is why it hit me so hard, is because these kids look just like my little girl. And they have these barcode tattoos a lot of the times. Now, these aren't scannable barcodes like product in the store. It's more of a visual symbol and a marker of ownership, or what they believe is ownership. But what's really scary is those barcodes do have numbers and letters above or below them that are linked to websites, because this is organized crime. This isn't just some gang or something. This is organized crime, where if a girl in Chicago is seen by another pimp, they'll pull her off the street and they'll look up that number in these underground sites and see who she, quote, belongs to. They'll call that person and say, hey, we just found this girl in Chicago. Is she supposed to be here? And of course, most of the time the answer is no, she ran away. Make her disappear. And they will kill these girls or send them somewhere else with someone else. And it's disgusting, it's disturbing, and every time I think I've heard the worst, it gets worse. So those
tattoos are like a death sentence.
It is, literally, it's a walking death sentence. Then they finished just going through with about an hour-long presentation on this and showing me all this. And they looked at me in the eye and said, would you be willing to help these girls? And I was like, how am I going to say no? Of course I'll help. So we started doing, because most of these girls were under 18, I didn't want to do cover-up tattoos. And to do cover-up tattoos, I have to get a judge's approval because they're under 18. And I don't want to go to prison for tattooing someone under 18. So we hooked up with a company out in Denver that supplied me with a tool using white light, similar to laser, where we could actually remove these tattoos. So we've become very active in the fight against human trafficking in the last year, and worked with a lot of great organizations, but it's pretty disturbing what's going on out there.
Yeah. No, that's huge. I mean, yeah, you're literally saving their lives through that. And then the other thing that comes out of it, I mean, when you're doing someone's tattoo, you actually get a few hours of their undivided attention. And so you end up talking, you get to hear their story, and then sometimes they even get to hear some of yours.
Yeah, definitely. It's being a tattoo artist, whether it's doing the Ink 180 work or regular work, it's kind of similar to like a bartender. People just kind of like to tell you their story and tell you what's been going on in their lives. And another part of my counseling over the last few years is how to become an active listener and really focus on what people are saying and what they're trying to convey to you. And I do that, and I'll sit there and I'll listen to them for the first hour or so. And then one of the things I also do is I provide them with free Bibles, and I'll flag verses out for them kind of based on what they've gone through and what they're going through and kind of things they're struggling with. But it's been great. It hasn't been without its challenges for sure, financial challenges as well as a lot of spiritual warfare. I had 3 death threats the first year, which honestly, I don't want to sound like I think I'm tough, but they don't scare me because these were phone calls that I received, and I read Ephesians 6:11 to them and talk about the armor of God. And when you pray for somebody that's threatening your life, it seems to be kind of powerful. Yeah. My mom doesn't especially care for that, but she understands and respects it. Tonight, we do a lot of work with the gangs on the south side. We do a lot of prayer walks in Inglewood. In fact, tonight I'll be up there with Corey Brooks, who's you may have seen in the news. He's doing a lot of work up on the south side and trying to build a youth center. But there were 7 more young lives lost this weekend. So it's hard. One of the kids that died last night, we know. So it's a scary world, but ministry isn't always pleasant. Sometimes it's scary and it's dark, but to really reach the least of these, sometimes you just have to do that. And I take my marching orders from God, and if He tells me to do it, I feel like I'm going to be protected.
Man, amen to that. That's awesome. Hey, let's appreciate Chris. What's up, brother? Appreciate it. Man. Oh, I love that. What an incredible story, right, of just transforming, even in a visible way. Imagine having to wear around your biggest either thing done to you or sin that you did in your life that everybody can see all the time, right? And He gets to help people know as God changes you on the inside, I'll make this visible change on the outside. So Chris is going to be standing out in the lobby.